Who's my girl? Who? She ain't my sister. But she did ask about you.
I've been known for playing, but there ain't no playing with you. No passwords on cell phones when I put myself alone with you. Yeah, feeling far too strong to put you on pause for a minute. My heart's run for us, girl, I'm yours if you with it. Baby, with it. Tell me if you with it.
Baby, I get lost in you like I get lost in music. Your mood and your set of melodies seduce me like beats to vocals, completes my focus. That's why I got so many different styles to stroke you. We could take two, we could take three. I can take you, then you can take me. We could take multiple days off a week and treat each one like the last we'll ever see, cause
I'm not gonna rush it, cause it's so worth taking our time. Our time. Take a tour of your world, then you're taking a tour of mine. Put your guard down, please, and your arms round me for a minute. Let your thoughts for each, put our minds at ease if you're with it.
visions of you moving spin around and freeze frame. Make it awfully hard to keep sane. We don't have no reason to refrain. Close to remain, post from eBay. Give me a free chance to score like PKs. Euphoria feelings we make. Do something special like your skirt, believe me. You can use the button-up shirt for PJ.
Now that I've had a hit of you,
And you've had a hit of me.
my heart keeps pulling me so close to you.
I'm falling officially. Baby, you ain't even gotta go nowhere. I have everything you need.
If everything goes the way it can, then girl, you can be Mrs. Me.
Our feelings got so strong. We done went more far than a minute. We done made it this long. We gon' take this fun to the limit.
We are everything I thought we'd be. We made it's every odd we've seen. Get back is a big cigar. You say everything that's mine is ours. Rings vows and life together. Embark on the journey of life together. I'm sure any storms we can right the weather. Got a bond so strong that over time it's better.
We are
One in the same.
we made
This life together.
okay.
Watch us blossom forever. No stopping us now.
Exchange.
Numbers and things. Places out of you
I'm
range.
sure.
You'd have the time of your life, baby.
Let's go. Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it. Trapping and rapping. It's nasty. Yeah, I'm a divine freak. Your girl always know how to find me. Taking bitches down is my hobby. Don't give me head if it ain't sloppy. Yeah, I'm a divine freak. Your girl always know how to find me. Taking bitches down is my hobby. Don't give me head if it ain't sloppy. Once upon a time, not long ago, I went to buy a couple swishers from the Coney store. But oh no, what is this that I see? Two big booty Amazons waving at me. Ooh wee, bye bye. Look at them big lips, hips and thighs. I wonder why I gotta be like that. My bitch is waiting at the room and she's already matched. At the right phone numbers with a pen and paper. I got a business card. Bitch, call me later. My bitch got a habit of always checking my pocket. She knows about my pimping ways and she's trying to stop it. But oh no, it's never not gonna happen. I'll be a thug next nigga till I'm tired of macking. So either you go bounce to this or roll yourself another blunt, smoke an ounce of this. Come on. I'm a divine freak. Your girl always know how to find me. Taking bitches down is my hobby. Don't give me head if it ain't sloppy. Yeah, I'm a divine freak. Your girl always know how to find me. Taking bitches down is my hobby. Don't give me head if it ain't sloppy. Okay, now here's the whole situation. I brought all kind of forgot flavor lubrication. They love oral sex and no penetration. That's what they told me on a three-way phone conversation. So I set up a date so we could hook on up. The folks said they really like me and they wanted to fuck. I said, cool, we can keep this on the hush, but let's all keep a mindset.
Talk about it, I'ma get it done. I follow this nigga that make my son. Just cause you got a gun, bet you won't shoot. That's China money. We really getting loot. Mad cause you got the boot. Where were you when the rent was due? Online, telling on crew. Despicable how you hitting hoes. Paperwork thought nobody knows. Hitters pull up, white bite froze. That's the path you chose. I'm nothing to play with just cause I stay lit. No more words, you can save it. Top came off the game, no smoky weather. I'm a nice guy, turned into predator. Know how to get at you. Keep on shining. That success gon' kill you like I did bitch vagina. Really go in. Dug that ditch, just waiting for you to fall in. I'm always on the win. They talking spicy, spitting ghost pepper. Once you go there, I'ma never let up. Nigga, shut up. You know I'm official. We can throw them hands, don't need no pistol. Heard you talking spicy, spit that ghost pepper. Once you go there, I'ma never let up. Nigga, shut up. You know I'm official. We can throw them hands, don't need no pistol.
Ooh, sad.
Hey, you know I'm good for it. Hey, Louette. Hey, Hey. You know I'm good for it. It's just lip, I never told, I wish you would, buddy. Put him in the pot, we had to cook the buddy. If he ain't puffin' those eyes, then what you smoking, homie? I don't get why these niggas talk, these niggas really nervous. Lil' Birdie like to slide the whip, you know he finna swerve. Cuddy flip, he tryna flip shit and leave him on the curb. Yeah, he tryna flip shit and leave him on the curb. Hey, nigga, you know I'm good for it. Up in the hood, I'm posted up, I'm feeling good, buddy. Got some bad bitches, they tryna fuck on me. Told them little bitches only running to the show, honey. Hey, brother, do the dash, nigga. If I see the fucking rollers, you better smash, nigga. Rollers tryna get us, man, that's a NOT. If I ever get caught, can never say a thing. It's gun gang, bitch on my mama, I thought you niggas knew. If me and DJ got the pole, we tryna up with you. If we catch a op, we crack his top on gun gang, he drop. Do my diddy bop on the ops, you know they hate my top.
Shut. Smack. Stop playing. Look. They know I'm good for it. All my niggas tryna ball, my whole hood scoring. Bad bitch had her pull up in that good foreign. She give me good neck, she only send you good mornings. I was like 16 doing boss shit. Same team, big three like we Boston. Learned a couple lessons, nigga had to take some losses, now we ballin'. Or shit, we booming, what they call it, Niggas lame, they can't get a thing from me. Took his bitch, she said it's the chain for me. Heard his songs, I think he get it slang from me, but I ain't tripping how I get it. Gotta get a game for free, see it's a mission how I hit it. Really ain't no thing to me. You ain't a boss, you can't even hang with me, I done left niggas for less, plus I'm with Hep, so when I step, I'm leaving bitches out they breakfast mad. They know I'm good for it.
Perky 5s, Perky 10s, Perky 30, got it all. We getting money, little baby, we ain't worried. Hell no. Keep it 30 on me, baby, call me Curry. Bookie blind in this bitch, got it must. All hard in this bitch, call me Kobe. 20 on that bitch, call that bitch Ginobili. All hard on the neck, acting the donkey. But when I see your ass in person trying to be on me, fucking shit. Stop it, nigga. Man, you need to stop it, nigga. Talking shit, ain't popping, nigga. Man, my niggas really rocking, now we dropping, niggas. Close range, that we got the nigga. Stop plotting, we are not the niggas. Young Woody got the chop and he dropping niggas. Young Woody on the block and he clocking figures, I need a fucking addy. Where it's at? I said I need a fucking addy. Popping all these birds, got my eyes hella baggy. Smoking all this cookie, got my eyes hella saggy. Pouring all these lines, young nigga gotta have. Money in my face, young nigga gotta grab. Lock my brother down, cause that boy is a savage. Free ooh, nigga 400 blocks savage. Stop.
Hey, this your boy DJ Bro. We on Historical Podcast Radio. Get down, it's your boy Big. Stop it. Big, stop it. We're gonna keep it going. We're about to start it up in about 10 minutes, so let's do it.
I just got another seal. This nigga tryna pay a bill. Each line, nigga, I ain't cutting no deals. Selling no deal, him and cracking all the seals. Lucky I didn't charge you 120. She get it from the doctor. I know it ain't sealed, but I know that bitch proper. And I love my doctor. He keep feeling scripts, man, I love my doctor. I love that nigga. But he tripping cause I smell like cookie. He said freshen up, boy, he can't be a rookie. With the digit shit before I made a soft 20. Keep running up the skull like some fucking bullies. Bullies with fullies. But them niggas bullies with fullies. You don't want them GB niggas coming, man. They'll come through and start drumming, man. Hey. Yeah, man, you already know we rockin', man. GB, man. Told you niggas, man.
She gon' make it clap. I'ma show a stack. She gon' throw it back. I'ma blow a rag. Lemon pepper wings. We bout to smoke a pad. Drinking the Coke and Jack on my open tab. I like to see my independent women winning. Get it, flip and spend it. Stay about your business and your benefits. She way up there, getting dizzy spinning. She ready to make that ass drop any minute. Niggas be Superman, Captain Kirk, and the waitress is serving. The strippers is twerking for Birkins, but gaming is working. Literally, niggas be bitter for weeks. Cause all you got from her is some glitter on your cheek. She made a phony plan for a lonely man. So he dropped 40 bands on her OnlyFans. He had dreams of holding hands on the sand. Should've listened to your homies. Damn, she on that Polish again.
Drop it down low, yeah, mob out her chips. Get your stacks every night, little baby ain't about to quit. Big body, Birkin, red body. it down low. Yeah, mop out her chips, get her stacks a night. Little baby about to quit. Big body, red bottoms, big tipper. Yeah, she can spot it. Thunderstorm when I'm in the building, bring a few bottles. Yeah, I'm chillin', hit the stage and watch her clap it. Draw them goons, little mama a magnet. Top shelf, she don't do them lanes. She'll break them pockets. It's not a game. Want a mouth off? She dustin' and disgusting. Better play them cards right. I wouldn't trust it. She can drop it down low. Yeah, mop out her chips. Get her stacks a night. Little baby ain't about to quit. Big body, Birkin, red bottoms, big tipper. Yeah, she can spot them. She can drop it down low. Yeah, mop out her chips. Get her stacks a night. Little baby about to quit. Big body, Birkin, red bottoms, big tipper. Yeah, she can spot ya.
Shit, I tell a bitch like this, man. It's a privilege to fuck with me, bitch. I been had money, huh? Ain't gonna affect me none if you go. I'm only gonna check my chicken.
Broke ass bitch, you know I don't need ya. Never been a follower, always been a leader. Your nigga bought that boat, but we bought them 2 liters. Bitch, you got the bus while I'm out of 2-seaters. Broke ass bitch, you know I don't need ya. I just took a bag, born doing another feature. Oh, I'm in the game, and your nigga riding bleachers. Trips on my bags, now I'm ready for the re-up. Pretty little broke bitch, now I don't need ya. Nor will I be the call me up and I just teach ya. I act like a nigga got that goddamn amnesia. No, I don't remember unless you talking about that bread. Only want the bag, I don't need no head. You can keep the pussy, bitch, all I want is dead. Them blue chips and new chips and new kicks and no fish and bank cards and the whips. And if you can't do this, then your ass a broke bitch. And I gotta let you know, Smokey Montana don't fuck with you broke ass hoes. Check your temperature, cause you might have a fever. Bitch, I think you're sick, for thinking I'ma need ya. Broke ass bitch, you know I don't need ya. Never been a follower, always been a leader. Your nigga bought that boat, but we bought them 2 liters. Bitch, you ride the bus while I'm out of 2-seaters. Broke ass bitch, you know I don't need ya. I just took a bag, doing another feature. Oh, I'm in the game, and your nigga riding bleachers. Trips on my bags, now I'm ready for the re-up.
So I says, bitch, you look like you need pimping, young man. She said, I got a pimp. I said, shit, that nigga ain't no pimp. He a valet for hoes.
So how you doing with that little midget girl you sent out?
Man, she keep coming up short.
Get away from me, bitch!
That buzz walk, I don't stop. Boss lady, I been high. You know I'm talking about. I been oozing. When I step out like who's this? Honey dripping, bitch, I been oozing. Guess who stepped in? Bitch, like who's this? What they talking about? Oh, you better be quiet, I'm oozing. Got the drink in the coach, like who's this? I'm about my honey, I'm dripping. You can't take it funny, he like who's this? When I'm buzzing, I'm like
getting pussy, getting lit till the day I'm done. I'm a rider till the wheels fall off, son. Now tell me why I wouldn't wanna get high or have a fine ass bra rubbing hard on my thigh. Yeah, I can't lie, it ain't perfect all the time, but I travel so far down the line that I can't turn back. It ain't hard to tell. I'm so deep that I'm halfway to hell, so I might as well go ahead and get my money's worth before the day comes that my family gotta come dirt and tell them to rehearse my eulogy. Some people might say I've been living DJ Row, but I disagree. I'm just living it up, cause it's so much more fun when you don't give a fuck.
Hey, what's up?
What's up?
You wanna have some fun?
How much this phone cost?
Well, for 20, you could get a lap dance, but for 100, you could come back with me to the private room.
Oh, I think I like private room. Let's go.
They say sky's the limit. I feel like I'm on the moon with this one right here.
Yeah. On the wave, ride like a surfboard. Bad chick on my side, something you can't afford. She looking like a bag of money walking out the bank. You know the hustle, no limit, like we rep the tank. We grind hard, ball, hustle. We getting money, man, you can't take nothing from us. We grind hard, ball, hustle. We getting money, man, you can't take nothing from us. Keep my pockets on full like an ATM. I'm the nigga they love to hate but wanna be him. I understand why they mad, I probably hate me too. I'm up one, you niggas broke, so I don't fuck with you. We ain't got nothing in common, so ain't no need to talk. I'm on the paper chase, trying to fill up the vault. Look, I got kids to feed, so ain't no time to stall. I'm in the field running plays like I'm Randy Moss, or maybe Marshall Faulk. Either way, I'm in my zone, and anywhere I go, you know I hold my own. A young king, nigga, I'm sitting on the throne. Keep all that hating shit, that's something I don't condone. On the wave, riding like a surfboard. Bad chick on my side, something you can't afford. She looking like a bag of money walking out the bank. You know the hustle, no limit, like we rep the tank. We grind hard, ball, hustle. We getting money, man, you can't take nothing from us. We grind hard, ball, hustle. We getting money, man, you can't take nothing from us. Real nigga, solid like a brick wall. They said I wasn't gonna be shit, look at me now, dawg. Still independent, making moves like the majors, man. I stayed down and prayed up, I had a major plan. I took a couple losses, but had to bounce back. That's how it be sometimes when you fuck up the sack. Like a train that got derailed, I was off track. But the hustle in me wouldn't let me accept that. So I got back on my feet, 100 miles and running. They didn't believe in me, now they feel I owe them something. You niggas stop the frontin', you know I came from nothing. Got it out the mud, yeah, I was really hustling. On the way, ride like a surfboard. Bad chick on my side, something you can't afford. She looking like a bag of money walking out the bank. You know the hustle, no limit, like we rep the tank. We grind hard, ball, hustle. We getting money, man, you can't take nothing from us. We grind hard, ball, hustle. We getting money, man, you can't take nothing from us.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Row. It's that time. Anna, you ready?
Sure am.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Hey. Podcast Radio.
Global History Radio. What's up, everybody? Good to see you. Yes. Yeah, happy Tuesday. We're back on Tuesdays. How's everybody doing? How you doing?
I'm good.
I can't hear you.
I'm good.
Good. Me too. Getting ready for my big show this week, which we'll be talking about. I'm reminding myself that you don't measure the success of a show by how many people show up, and doing shows in August is a challenge because a lot of people just have a lot of other stuff going on, and there's a lot of people that just aren't going out yet because of COVID. And I'm getting messages about it, and I'm thinking, like, you have the flyer. Okay, it's not the, the information. I'm not withholding information from anybody. I'm complying with the laws, with the regulations in Solano County, which are not requiring people to wear masks inside. So I'm not a school. So yeah, but it'll be good. It'll be good. We're going to be showing a documentary about Thurgood Marshall and a biopic about Thurgood Marshall. And as we've been talking about for a long time, Roselle is going to DJ one of my shows.
Yes, I am. But
Yeah.
This isn't gonna be like a normal DJ session. So just so everybody knows, this is gonna be more towards his time period,
yeah,
and his era. So I want everybody to understand that. So
yeah, but that'll be fun. So can you give me an idea who you're what you're going to be playing?
Eartha Kitt.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. Cool.
Let me tell you right now. I can tell you exactly.
I can't hear you, Roselle.
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Let me see. Stuff like I'll just give you a couple of names, like I just said: Eartha Kitt, David Ruffin, Chuck Berry, Etta James, Frankie Valli, Frankie Lyman, stuff of that nature.
Yeah. Wow. I really hope. Well, I hope we at least have some old folks showing up, because I know they will really enjoy that. So
I kind of figured, I get it. Even if there is younger people, it's kind of sometimes cool. Like when I used to watch, when you had the Bayard Rustin shows, I was always thinking, if we played kind of the music towards their time, it kind of brings people into that time period. And like you said, especially the ones that were born in that time, or that was their time, they'll know it even more so. But it would be pretty cool just to kind of play that kind of music.
Yes. And everybody, this is the first live show I'm doing with COVID. Everything's a little off, but I've already scheduled the next Bayard Rustin Symposium for January. That's going to be a party. So I want to have live music, and I definitely want to have you DJ that. We're going to have a film.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So by then there should be, hey, Trika. There we go. We got our friend Trika here. Nice to see you, honey. So, okay, well, we're all doing good. I cannot say the same for the world. Right off, there's about 2,000 people that have been killed in an earthquake in Haiti. But what's all over the news today for the past couple days is Afghanistan. And I'm going to try and do some background about that and some comments, just trying to figure out why this is so rough and what it says about politics, and not even just politics. It's like the person who, Biden is pulling out the US troops, and he is the fourth president to be contending with troops in Afghanistan. And he says he does not want to pass it on to the fifth. I was reading today that when he was vice president, Biden actually did want to pull the troops out. And so Obama was elected in 2008, and then in 2010, Obama did what is called the surge. He sent in about 30,000 more troops. And so it was the idea of, okay, let's send in, if we send in more troops, then we won't need to, maybe we can get everybody home. which didn't happen. And you know, there's a journalist I like a lot named Mehdi Hassan. Trika and I were talking about, I listen to people, especially when I started doing the podcast, and I still do. I listen to a lot of journalists and just really tried to learn from them. And Mehdi is just somebody I admire a lot. He is so fucking smart. He worked for Al Jazeera, and I kind of wished that he would come work in the US because he's such a great journalist. I thought the US could benefit from him. And he is now, which is not as interesting for me because I know a lot more about the stuff he's talking about. I've learned so much from Mehdi. He nails people. He gets people he's gotten like Bush's guys to admit to war crimes. He is, I believe, extremely principled and on the side of civilians. He nails everybody. He is very fair. He has Israeli leaders and Palestinian leaders on, and they both complain about, like, why aren't you talking to the other guys? And he's like, I do. So Mehdi's been there the whole time. And I'm fascinated by how he is of Southeast Asian descent, Sri Lanka, I believe, and is a British citizen, but is now a US citizen. And I am fascinated why. I would really hope he'll answer me one of these days on Twitter. So one of the things he's saying is now, you know, history has set short memory. There's been a rehabilitation of George W. Bush over the past couple of years, maybe because Trump was so bad. I don't know, maybe because after he left office, Bush kind of recast himself as an artist. He does art exhibits and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, I think maybe people want to remember things fondly, but Mehdi is pointing out that it was George Bush that got the United States into Afghanistan and bombed Afghanistan. And the thing that's fucked up, and it's the same reason I have a problem, to say the least, with Israel bombing Gaza because of Hamas. Hamas is not an official government. They're not a part of the official government, and neither was the Taliban. So who exactly are you trying to get to make a decision? That's what I don't think is fair. And to say the least, the Israelis voted for their leadership. So they voted for the people that are dropping the bombs. And Hamas is terrorists. They sent thousands of rockets into Israeli civilian areas, but the citizens of Gaza did not vote for them. They're not representing anybody but themselves and their cause. So it's the same with the Taliban. And so they were treating, I don't know, actually, well, okay, I take it back. They were, okay, I take it back. I take back some of this logic. The Taliban was in charge when Bush went in there. They had basically taken power in a coup. Nobody voted them in. So I kind of have some questions about that. but I don't know. I mean, and again, I mean, that happens all the time. That's always the excuse. Like, okay, well, we need to go in and get the bad guys. So, I mean, there was a tremendous amount of civilian casualties. And at the time in 2001, some of us, me and other people that are attuned to women's rights, we're very concerned about Afghanistan and had been. The Taliban took control of Afghanistan in 1996. Afghanistan has had a really painful history. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I don't have all of it. They were invaded by Russia, which was then the Soviet Union, in about 1978. And I remember it, just I'm not sure why. I didn't know what it meant, but I remember very clearly telling my mother that my family felt like Afghanistan and the USSR, which kind of tells you a little bit about my family.
Wow.
That was harsh. Yeah. So, okay, the last Soviet troops leave, and the US, and they had installed a ruler, and the US and Pakistan backed a group called the Mujahideen. This is one of the things about the United States government. I mean, sometimes the US goes to war against people that it had helped at one point. So in 1996, the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan and applied Sharia law, which is a hardcore, ultra-right interpretation of Islam. Women are not allowed to take a public role in society. Women are they're supposed to wear burqas, which is basically a bag over a tent over their head, which has like mesh over their eyes so they can see. Sometimes the word hijab is used to mean headscarf, and that's not what it means. Hijab means modesty. So it is a lot of Muslim women that are feminists, modern, cover their hair. I mean, their head. It's of their free choice. It is their tradition, their religion. So you don't say somebody's wearing a hijab. You say somebody is hijab. And so it applies to men too. Muslim tradition, Islamic tradition is modesty. So there's people that lump it all together, which is incorrect. I think in a lot of situations, like Pakistani women, a lot of the time, I think it's just will have to do with where people live and the style of dress that is customary there, and that is modest. So according to basically everybody else, the Quran does not instruct women to wear tents over their head. And Sharia law means if somebody was caught stealing, they get their hand chopped off. It is brutal toward gays and lesbians. They are hanged. If a woman is accused of adultery, she is stoned to death. And women cannot, in their society, in that society, women could not testify in courts. The only job they were allowed to have was medical professionals so that they could take care of other women. Girls' schools were bombed. Girls weren't supposed to go to school. Women were not allowed out without a male guardian. So, I mean, a lot of us, many of us that were feminists were very concerned about this. And then around 2001, the United States got all concerned about Afghan women. And that was part of why they claimed they were bombing in Afghanistan, was to help Afghan women. So, okay, I have the date somewhere. So this is all back in the early 2000s. The pretense they claimed that they were doing it because Afghanistan had harbored Osama bin Laden. And again, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me to attack a country because people in the country were breaking the law. I mean, like, of course it was unofficially condoned, but it wasn't an official policy. I mean, at the time, at the time when Osama bin Laden was during much of the time when he was being sheltered, the Taliban wasn't even in power. They were building power. So the US did a whole lot of PR about Muslim women, all the stuff they were doing for Afghan women. And, I remember the Bushes were real into that. So things have come and gone, I guess. When they started a new Afghan government with a president, people did get out and vote. And it's one of the things for me, since I do follow global politics, that means voting is important. Trying to take part in my government is important. Trying to speak out is important, because there's just so many places in the world where people can't do that, where women can't do that. And so you see people get out to vote that are risking their lives, which is amazing to me. So I just think about that a lot. I mean, I don't know. I think it partially just has something to do with sort of like my background, and I don't know, like somewhat not really feeling part of this country in some respects, or I don't know, this awareness or caution that this can all be taken away, which it sure can be. And, and appreciation that this country's been better to me and my family than it has to a lot of other people. And so taking part is my way to try and recognize that. So there were still assassinations of women leaders. I went to hear, this was years ago, a woman called Malala Joya, who was an Afghan member of parliament, speak. I mean, she was really interesting at Seattle, and it was in a church or something. But what I remember is, she's under, I suppose they were looking for bombs, and that I wasn't paying too much attention, but the guy that was supposedly her bodyguard, before she spoke, he got up and said, if there's an emergency, I'm going to bring Malala down the middle of the aisle, so everybody please stay out of the way. Like, Huh? So, okay, so if somebody is there trying to harm her, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna stand right here. Thanks for telling me where she's gonna be. I think he was kind of like carried away with I think he was a US guy. I think he was kind of carried away with some drama and self-importance, but I don't know. So, okay. Trump struck a deal for the United States to leave Afghanistan, and is said, it said many times, we've been there for like what, 18, 19, 20 years or something. There are soldiers in Afghanistan who were not born on 9/11. There are, for everybody, it has been a generation. And I think about that since a lot of families are military families. So you're having kids, young people, go fight a war that their parents were fighting, or like we're still fighting, which is just really bizarre. I think I have just always felt that Afghanistan was forgotten about it, and that the reason that happens is because the military is so economically, and there's just such a huge gap between people in power and people with money don't have kids that go to war. And it's just real. And regionally, it's just, there's just pockets all over the world where like nobody goes. I found it hard sometimes to remember that the country was in war, and it shouldn't be like that. If your country's at war, you should know, you should be conscious. It should make a difference. And at the beginning of the Iraq war, you remember all the protests? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember all the protests in the first Iraq war too. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I just remember, I remember before Bush went into Iraq, just thinking like, this, how can he do this? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. But,
I think we never know the whole truth anyway. I think we never get the full truth of any of these wars.
Yes.
Of why, because certain things, like you said, it never really makes sense. Like even with Afghanistan, it doesn't, none of it really adds up. But I just think that there's stuff that we are not privileged to know. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know what it is. I don't know. Like you said, like when Obama was there, he sent more troops down there. And, we all were wondering, why do you keep having, why are we even there?
True. Well, that wasn't, he explained why. He was sending in more, and
I get why he was sending them in, but it just, to be there that long.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I get it. Okay, we was in there. We freed him of the Taliban, or supposedly we did at the time. Go,
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I hate to say it in a mean way, but they, at some point, you can't just stay.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of what happened with Vietnam. One of them kind of deals where no matter how long we're there, we're never gonna, completely get rid of this Taliban, because pretty much half of that country is Taliban. To me, it's most of these countries, half of them are Taliban or whatever, ISIS or whatever they want to be. So it's like I don't think you'll be able to ever solve their situation. And then I always wonder why. What's the deal of us going in there in the first place and spending that much time there?
Yeah, yeah, and like when Biden was vice president, he was saying, he doesn't want to have a fucking Saigon. That's, I mean, the comparisons with Vietnam are, very clear to a lot of people, and I think because, I mean, you're fighting an ideology. You're not, so you don't win that with guns. So, I mean, there's always people that are making money from war.
Very true.
Yeah. I don't know. I sort of think sometimes like, well, maybe they do it. Maybe it's also to keep more people invested in the country. Because I don't know. I mean, it's hard for people to, I mean, my understanding is that families and veterans, the people that served in Afghanistan, are having a really hard time with this. They sacrificed, they lost a lot, and for what?
Just like Vietnam.
Yeah. I mean, the one difference, fortunately, is that people learned, I mean, since Vietnam, more people learned to separate your feelings about the war from the people that went to go fight it. That was people took out their anger about Vietnam on the soldiers. So, but yeah, it is. So, I mean, we've had a generation go to war in Afghanistan. The Taliban has a generation. See, that's the thing I'm not seeing talked about enough. They have people that they've been having kids all along. They've been indoctrinating. And in that society, you're an adult at 14, practically. I mean, in a lot of those societies like that, I mean, it's childhood and then it's adulthood. There's not much of a middle ground. And so you have a lot of people that have grown up with nothing else, just knowing this ideology. You have a bunch of girls and women that have been raised in a society, I mean, so I'm seeing, so there's a lot, I mean, there's been Afghan women out protesting, and from what I am seeing from the reports, there's already like hardly any women out in the street. People are scared. They're staying home. They're scared of what's gonna happen. And Afghan women and girls that are not in the country are speaking out, protesting. I don't know what the fuck they're gonna do. And I was watching the BBC, and one of the leaders of the Taliban called in to talk to the newscaster. She was cool. She just took the call, and I mean, it was pretty amazing. Just real professionalism, got right into it. And she pushed him. She really kept asking him about women. What's going to happen to women? I mean, are they going to be able to have jobs? Are they going to be able to go to school? So and then they gave a press conference, which is being, where that question was being asked, was what they're saying is, we are going to allow women to work and study within our framework. So there you go. it's going to be under their framework, and their framework doesn't allow women to do any of that. Women are going to be very active within our society. That's what they're saying. They're saying, like, according to one of the things that was said by some of the leaders was, he said they didn't answer about, you see, they've said women won't need to wear burqas, but just look at what's happening. Okay, there's already hardly any women out and about on the street. It's already happened. They know. And he said, like, women, don't worry, you're going to be safe. So I was like, there you go. That's the code right there. That is what fascist, misogynist governments say, is we're protecting women. Women are so great. We love women so much that we're just going to lock them up. So, yeah. I mean, so you have, but basically, I mean, it took, like, they were ready. I mean, it took, like, and they never, I think at best, the Taliban still controlled about a third of the country, which is pretty fucking lame. I mean, if the might of the, if the US can't even, that was part of it. I mean, what I always said was, I mean, if I thought that the US government could help, if I thought the involvement could help people, I would feel differently, but obviously it is not. And the Taliban has a lot of money. They've always manufactured, poppies grow there. So they've always manufactured opium. Apparently now there's minerals there, which they sell. Apparently now they also manufacture crystal meth. Yeah. So they've just been biding their time. I mean, one thing that culture, it's like when they're single-minded, they have this goal, this one thing is important to you. And I think if one thing is important to you, you just learn to be patient. And that's what they've been doing. They have a lot of weapons, and they've been making money all these years. And Russia, Pakistan, and China have all signaled a readiness to transition smoothly into engaging with Taliban authorities. So, I mean, the Chinese economy has just expanded massively. I mean, China goes into countries that the United States doesn't want to deal with. And yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Oh, that's why China is where they at now.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, back to what we don't know. I mean, the military is saying they didn't think it would happen so quickly. Like, okay, well, you guys were sure asleep on the job. How have you not been paying attention to what they're doing all these years? I mean, these guys are ready. They're organized. So, and with ISIS, okay, see, ISIS always had I mean, Syria is a real different, I mean, to say the least. I mean, Syria is a lot more, what was a lot more industrialized than Afghanistan, because they did a lot of work. Hey Tim, they did a lot of work. Women did a lot of work online through ISIS. So, but you know, most of us, you're born, they now have, as I keep saying, a generation of women and girls that grew up expecting to be married off at 12 or 14 because that's what they did. And Taliban has been going through villages already, kidnapping women and girls. And at the press conference, the leaders said that they would be disciplined, they would be punished. They weren't supposed to be doing that. One of the leaders was in Guantanamo Bay for years. And see, that's another thing that the United States just forgot. I mean, here George Bush is acting like he's been such a good guy. He's the one that opened up Guantanamo Bay and threw a bunch of people and has held people there for 20 years without trial. And so that you do that, I mean, so you have people that are missing their relatives, people that have not, you know, that like, okay, your relatives just been thrown away forever. They don't even have a trial. So, you know, anger is going to sustain people through all that. And they want things back their way. And you know, I mean, it's kind of like when, you know, I mean, it's like when the US, I mean, it's kind of like when the US left Iraq, which was, you know, and ISIS took over. And so that was Obama picking up Bush's mess, and basically now we have Biden picking up Bush's mess as well. I mean, however, I mean, one of my biggest disappointments with Obama is that he did not shut down Guantanamo Bay, and I think he did it. And I think it was because Democrats especially don't really pay much attention to foreign policy. Republicans do. So I think it was another thing where people just forgot about it and just didn't pay attention. So I don't know. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I just wish so much there was something we could do. I mean, just the thought of the women of an entire country, of an entire society being not having a life. The other thing the Taliban did was you know, they were the ones that especially first started smashing up graven images. There were these gigantic Buddhas in Afghanistan that were like 30 feet high from way early, and the Taliban blew them up. And I mean, when you do that, it's just, you're destroying people's history when you do that. And so when you do that along with human rights abuses, so you're not only hurting people, you're hurting their psyche, you're hurting the collective psyche. So now there's no way in hell you could rebuild stuff like, and you know, and that's what ISIS did. They went through blowing up and smashing artifacts and also allowing artifacts to be looted, as we've talked about quite a bit, and bought by dumbass fundamentalist Bible thumpers and sent back. I mean, there's just money to be made with all of this. And I mean, with the military, I guess it's, you know, the suppliers, you know, the people supplying the uniforms and all of that. Yeah, there's people making money off of war. And it means that it means more money spent on defense, you know, building airplanes and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, we haven't even, it's odd to me also. I mean, so check this out. Okay. Uganda is to take in 2,000 refugees who have fled Afghanistan. See, and Great Britain is saying that they'll take refugees. I don't even know what to, I mean, people are flying, now people are trying to leave Afghanistan, trying to leave the airport, and yeah, it could be Saigon, it could be 50 years ago. And some of the ladies in my, one of the ladies in my Bible study in my prayer group today was saying that, oh, I don't understand it. Why are they hanging on to this? Why are they hanging on to this plane to get out? And I was like, because it's better than the alternative. I get it, man. It's like, do you want to have, they know what's gonna happen to them. And it's like, you know, one of the things, like when Ida B. Wells was doing her anti-lynching advocacy, I remember, because I've heard her words read, you know, she just led movements to get the fuck out of the South. She said, you know, like, I'm not going to stay here and die like a dog. And so there's people that feel like they don't want to sit around and wait for the Taliban to come get them. They want to try and get the fuck out. And if you know, are you going to do something really dangerous to have a chance to get out? Are you get out? That's still a choice that you're making. And that could feel a lot better than just waiting to be hauled out and stoned to death. So yeah, I get it. There was a cargo plane that was supposed to leave and people got on it. It's supposed to hold 150 people. 640 people got on this plane and the pilot flew them out. So there's that happening. Great Britain is saying that they're going to take refugees. Then you just get into the problems that we talked about so much. Then you can politicize refugees and all of those problems. Instead, people don't want to be refugees. Like, don't fuck over their countries and they maybe won't need to be refugees. But Uganda is also having an epidemic of polio, which is insane. The polio vaccine was developed like 60, like around 1960. I mean, at least maybe even longer ago. My dad is a pediatrician. He's an old man. He took care of kids with polio at the very beginning of his career, which is one of the reasons that doctors of his generation are so incredulous at anti-vaxxers. They would just see people being mowed down. So I don't understand why they can't, I mean, why all those like nonprofits and global health people can't get out and vaccinate people against polio. That is just, of all the dumbass things to be dealing with in 2021, that is really up there.
I mean, would you really still be able to vaccinate people for polio right now?
Yeah, why not?
No, I'm not saying it like they can't. I'm saying it in the sense that since we're having people that don't even barely want to vaccinate for COVID, I mean, do you think this is going to start like a somewhat of a revolution toward vaccinations, period?
Well, it's very different. I mean, people were not vaccinating their kids against measles, and that was the big bullshit thing that was said, that and it was nonsense, that vaccines cause autism, which is a lie, which was stupid, which was not bolstered by science at all. I think that's been around for at least 20 years. I think it really coincided with the internet and the real troubling belief system, and people believing their friends on the internet. So I mean, that just kind of popped in my head right now about the timing of it. But yeah, I mean, so far as I know, dumbass Americans are still letting their kids be vaccinated against polio. You might, because again, I mean, it's herd immunity. You're supposed to be able to get to a point eventually. I guess we still get polio vaccines here in the US, but I'm not even too sure. But there's it's geographic. So there, so in parts of the world where they have it, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely superstitions and lack of information. I don't know. I don't know enough about what the issues are in Uganda, but it's one of these, I mean, all the African nations have so many countries, have so many nations within them, that people can just have real different cultural beliefs, and there's going to be a lot more isolation and mistrust. So like if you have a village where people think the polio vaccine is harmful, I mean, you're fucked. So, I mean, here in the US, you have your little pockets of people, but okay, the vaccine cause autism is almost entirely a belief by rich people, almost entirely. Poor people want their kids to get shots. And so like my sister was tracking it when her kid was in preschool. My sister's a pediatrician too, and she said that like not, and her kid was like going to preschool, you know, in their neighborhood, which was like, you know, upper middle class, whatever. And 90% of the children there weren't vaccinated because their parents were, like, oh, my little snowflake might get something or other from the shot. Whereas, you know, she worked in a clinic. I mean, poor people don't want their kids getting sick. They're like, yeah, give them the fucking shot. So, you know, and it's another thing that's just bullshit because it turns into, so basically you have rich people infecting poor people should they happen to come across each other, which, you know, isn't a given in our society. So those are the ones affecting people that they're vulnerable to measles. And yeah, so kids do die of measles. It's another thing that should have been eradicated. I mean, you know, it should have been eradicated by, you know, the time you were a kid, or maybe or like a little afterward. So yeah, people are stupid. I mean, and I was the governor of Texas, who's been anti-mask and all of that, has COVID, but it doesn't, I mean, I think people are just really stubborn, because even people that are real anti and everything, they're still, I mean, a lot of them will still be saying like, no, I still don't believe it, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, you know, if I'd done something real dumb, I wouldn't necessarily want to admit it to everyone. Yeah, but well, you want to take a break and play some music?
Let's do it. I'm down.
Okay, we'll be right back. Facebook, Global History Radio.
Rock and roll. Bam, bam, and bam.
Jump over him. Get it. Weapon upgrade.
I just leveled up. Real estate, rapping the stocks. Managed claws, no hustle, it's cold in your socks. Most cars, we like the hot box. Rich before rich, we on the high rise. Vallejo, California, from the east side. Chris Club, we turn out, you should slide. I trap, I never burn out. I play all night, you'll turn out. I never pass sticks, weapon upgrade. Hella achievement and accolades. I'm going up gas prices. High top days, we stuck on same level for hella days. Oh damn, you bored on the same board. It's chess, not checkers, my G. Not on same board. Level up, we about to level up. Good hell, double up. Heavy on pedal, so get extra man to the next level, bruh. We about to level up. We about to level up. We about to level up. Good hell, not double up. Heavy on pedal, so got extra man to the next level. We about to level up. We about to level up. She been squatting her ass to level the bank account. Commas a price of gold, them triple bruh. Louis V said kill him. He got the shovel, bruh. This is the deli. Yes, we got bread. Yes, we be baking. We multitask, smoking on grass. You getting lapped, heavy on gas. Pedal to floor, come to a beat. I become Thor, rich before rich and Vallejo explore. Give you some more. The level, the bank account. Average, Mr. Man, the champions ain't no game. Chanel, I told you back to the about the level up. Good hell, double up. Heavy on pedal, so get extra man to the next level, bruh. We about to level up. We about to level up. We about to level up. Good hell, not double up. Heavy on pedal, so get extra man. Let's go.
Hallelujah, God is good all day, every day. When I wake up in the morning, I give thanks and I pray. I wrote this verse, then I gave thanks and praise. I smoke a blunt, then get a nut, then I give thanks and praise. Ooh, Lord, please forgive me, I'm a fornicator. My soul is getting pleasure now, please don't burn it later. I believe God's a creator, not a terminator. Only a man would send a soul to an incinerator. Man is the perpetrator, and I'm offended. Man-made religion got the whole world tripping. If you're scared, go to church. I ain't been in years, shed so many tears. Hail Mary, no fear. Hell is a myth, and Satan don't exist. Be out praying to make a that is and Satan don't exist. God is the Alpha and the Omega, that is it. All day, every day. So I give thanks and praise. All day, every day. So I give thanks and praise. God is good all day, every day. So I gotta give thanks and praise. Hey. God is good all day, every day. So I gotta give thanks and praise. Hey. Second. That is it. All day, every day. Hey. Smoke a lot of green, yeah, sip a little lean. Yeah, I like to have fun all night. Drink a little drink, stars light. I'm the type of look to smoke a lot of green. Maybe pop a pill, sip a little lean. Yes, I like to have fun all night. Drink a little drink, snort a little white. Drink a little drink, snort a little white. Yes, the Boston, take a quick flight, puff a little drink, twist it off the white, smoke the best draw, I don't do light, holy great money cloud, cause I'm high in the kite, haul in the club with my thugs to the right, well, fuck the sausage party, I need something thick and light, maybe thick and light, or something thick and dark, I'm a Barry Bonds that beat me, I knock it out the park, done it when I hunt it like a shark, gave something tight, so the shark would get a dark, don't fuck with Marks, homie real nigga, about the fast life, money, folks, and hoes, bitches. I'm the type of like to smoke a lot of green, maybe pop a pill, sip a little lean. Yeah, I like to have fun all night. Drink a little drink on the starlight. I'm the type of like to smoke a lot of green, maybe pop a pill, sip a little lean. Yes, I like to have fun all night. Drink a little drink, snort a little white. Drink a little drink, snort a little white.
Rolling like cheese, niggas smoking like John.
We are back. Anna's Historical Podcast Radio, Global Podcast Radio. I don't know where Anna went to, but Anna just bounced on me. Anna, are you there? Anna. Ooh. And are you there?
Yeah, I am. Sorry about that. I was enjoying your music.
Oh, now ain't this something?
Huh?
Yeah, I didn't know because I tried to keep it at like 3 songs because it looks like you were ready. So
yeah,
I was like, let me not.
Yeah. Oh man, I guess
go too far anyway.
Oh no, I get shit. It's so fucking crazy, man. All these devices. Thanks to some of our new subscribers and people that are listening. You know, it's pretty fucking amazing. We've been doing this for 4 years. We're on OzCat now. Just pretty fucking cool. I can't quite figure out. Yeah. I'm kind of mixed up about. I haven't heard us yet, but we're supposed to be on it. So,
you know, I tried to listen to it on the app.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it.
Yeah, we'll get it. Yeah, we'll get it figured out. I'm not too sure either. But OzCat, any of you that are listening, we are really thrilled to be here. You can go back over my Facebook, Anna Bergman, and see a lot of the lives. You can go to Rodsjoy 7076 on YouTube. You can also go to FJasmine50 on YouTube, where I have a lot of the stuff we've been doing, and contact us, please, because I love hearing from people. If you think I'm sort of like, if somebody says like, hey, you're wrong, I still find it flattering that they were paying. Yeah, we sure are. That they were paying attention. That people were listening that closely. I don't have a PhD. I'm a community historian. I'm plenty knowledgeable, but I'm not an expert. Comment, write us if you want to come on the show. Just let us know. We got a whole network here. So one of our things that we have talked about a lot is, how do you acknowledge the past? How do you acknowledge the past that's problematic, to say the least? We got to learn about stuff. And however, that's why that is the value of learning things that are, the traditional canon, as it were, because so that what people are thinking, and that these are books. Before I actually became a Christian, it was always on my list to like read the Bible, because it influenced a lot of people. And now I kind of read it because I want to. But okay, so we're moving over to Sir Francis Drake. I kind of, explorer in Great Britain. I had a shitty education, just to be clear, man. I'm self-taught, so if I can I'm a model, man. Anybody can do it. Just read, listen, watch documentaries. Yep. And very true. So, okay, so here's kind of the statue of Sir Francis Drake. Okay, he was rebranded. That's the word they use in his hometown. He's renowned for circumnavigating the world in a single expedition on his ship, the Golden Hind, from 1577 to 1580, and for defeating the Spanish Armada in 1588. He also, yes, we can. And he also enslaved people and massacred people. So the plaque used to just talk about him circumnavigating the globe, and this is what it says now. His life story is full of contrasts. He was seen as a hero for being the first Englishman to sail right around the world, and he played a major role in defending England from the Spanish Armada. But he was also involved in several horrific slave trading expeditions. Furthermore, as a privateer, he looted and plundered Spanish towns and ships in Europe and throughout their empire in the Americas. It's like, can we do stuff like this on statues everywhere? Like, educate, give the information. We need to know why somebody was considered a hero and understand that in the historical context. And we need to know about the fucked up stuff they did too. So put it all on the plaque. Don't just have statues sitting around. So people in the town 89 people in the town were opposed. I guess it was like a council decision, and only one supported it. But fortunately for whomever, the plaque is up there, and people are just real upset about it. Like, why are they saying bad things about our heritage? Because the world is fucked up, okay? I mean, they should do that, like the Confederate generals, like, yeah, they should be taken down. I think in the case of somebody like, I don't think statues, having a statue of somebody, to me, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were that great. It's so they can be remembered. And so Woodrow Wilson should be remembered for the Treaty of Versailles, for his being progressive about labor, and should also be, it needs to be remembered that he single-handedly resegregated the District of Columbia by firing African Americans from the post office, and showed Birth of a Nation in the White House. Yeah, see, that's another thing that I was reading about, because again, I mean, that is not, I was reading an interview with someone whose grandfather worked for the post office, which at the time was a field that Black Americans were hired into, until Woodrow Wilson came along and segregated it. So people remember that. So yeah. So I think Trika says take them all down. I mean, when statues are up, we remember people. And so, yeah, what were you about to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I remember how you were saying with the statues. I think the problem with statues is it isn't, like you said, just because they're up doesn't make them like it. They're not famous or good people. But yeah. I think the way that the making of a statue is kind of saying that you praise that person, like, even if they're bad people. And that's why I think most people want them down.
Yeah, which is why I think what they did with Sir Francis Drake is just fucking fantastic, because it should, like, yeah, he is historically significant. And so when you have all the information right there, like with Woodrow Wilson, it should, the plaques should give, it should give all the information. Well, not, you're not going to have all that on a plaque, but because it should, that is how a lot of us learn who people were, is by the statues. So when you have that, I guess, I don't know. I think, we need to remember who the presidents were, whether they're, their flaws and their good points. And so, I think
I can see presidents. I can understand presidents.
Yeah.
A president, to me, even if they were a bad president, people voted for him, so I can kind of see the little bit of a difference. But Confederate, like,
oh yeah,
like Confederate captains, and
Yeah.
I don't know about those kind of people.
They should be taken
That's
down.
difference.
Yeah, yeah. They should, yes, they should be taken down. And yeah, but because presidents are so historically significant, people should, I mean, I sure as fuck didn't know who Woodrow Wilson was until like a couple years ago. I mean, I just heard his name. So that is the advantage of having statues up. And if you give that information, then I think that's good. Because yeah, we need to remember the presidents. And I mean, FDR was tremendously problematic. I mean, he was a great man so far as the New Deal, but he you know, he sent Japanese people to internment camps. He could have bombed railroad tracks to the concentration camps and didn't. And the New Deal did not left out a lot of Black Americans. And next week, when I screen Summon, the documentary about Frances Perkins, we'll hopefully get a chance to bring that up. And so the New Deal excluded people, agricultural laborers, which at the time was pretty much the majority of African Americans in the South. And he did that to, I think, Trika, I think we have too many JFK statues. I'm not a JFK fan. And wait, are you sure? Wait a minute. Okay. Which he did to cave to Southern senators. I read a book this week called about the second, I don't remember the titles of the book, about the Second Amendment by this incredible writer named Carol Anderson. She always blows my mind. And it was about, I mean, it was basically about the second, you know, the right to bear arms, and how from the very beginning that amendment, that part of the Constitution was used against Black people. And, you know, basically, I know that's not a surprise so much to anyone, but, you know, when you read a book by Carol Anderson, then you get all the historical backgrounds and explanations, and how the founding fathers were trying to duke it out, and how from the very beginning, the ones from non-slave holding states were caving to the ones that were slave holding states. And I'm like, shit. I mean, here you have Nicole Hannah Jones being denied tenure because people don't think that slavery was foundational to the United States. So yeah, Carol Anderson blows my mind. I don't know that much about gun rights. I just read everything that I haven't paid too much attention to it, but you know, yeah, she's really amazing. And so yeah, she was explaining it. It was about militias, and I don't know. What did you learn about the founding of the U.S. in school?
Ooh, I don't even remember. That's been so long ago. I think back when I was in school, we started with the whole Christopher Columbus thing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
He came and was supposedly friends with the Indians. the
Yeah.
colony started, and yeah, that's kind of how I started with it.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. That was and yeah, so they figured out how to yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting when we talk about I mean, one of the things so interesting to me about Thurgood Marshall is that he believed in the US Constitution. I mean, he really believed that it could work, that there were great things about the Constitution, and that you could get what you wanted out of it, that it could be justice. And he helped. If anybody's been paying attention, I have said before that Thurgood Marshall helped write the Constitution for Ghana. I'm wrong. He helped write the Constitution for Kenya. So yeah, demerit for me. And he studied constitutions from all over the world and said that it was problematic, but he still thought the Constitution, the US Constitution, was the best one. So
my question for you is, I know you dealt a lot with like Bayard Rustin, and now you're dealing with Thurgood Marshall. What makes you choose these certain activists and these certain people? What's the reasoning behind who you choose and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, well, I learned about Bayard Rustin years ago, and I related to him in certain areas. I mean, I consider myself an organizer and a strategist. Like he was left out by people, and he was an example to me. I became really interested in a time in my life when I felt really fucked over by a lot of people. And Bayard was fucked over by people, and he always got up and kept going and continued working with people that had done him wrong. So he set the example of putting a cause before yourself. But how I work, I mean, when I started reading about Bayard, it was clear to me that he was part of a community, that there was a lot of other interesting, astounding people around him too. And so that's how, I mean, I started reading about, I mean, of course, I mean, I was certainly particularly, I mean, interested in like women's history. So, God, I mean, I'm interested. I'm interested in so that is how, and that is why I am an almost, in every chance I get, I refute the claim that Bayard Rustin is not better known, that he isn't better known because he's gay, because he was gay. He isn't better known because African-American history is not sufficiently taught, and that he was not forgotten, he was not in the background. It's white people saying that, and we're ignorant about African-American history. So that statement means so a statement like that, you are centering yourself. And when I started, I talked about this in the presentation. I mean, when I started learning about Bayard, I watched the film. I mean, I fell for the line that I was like, wow, here's this great figure that I didn't know about. and because he was gay, he was like, no, I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything about African American history. So, I mean, A. Philip Randolph was his mentor. When I read about people, I'm always really interested in finding out who influenced them, because you read about a great person and you're going to they don't exist on their own. They have colleagues, they have mentors, and how I became interested in Thurgood Marshall. I mean, I think the main reason is because I'm very interested in the law. My brother's a lawyer, and so I'm interested. And Thurgood Marshall was his mentor was William Hamilton Houston, who was Marshall's professor at Howard University, and it was Houston that first came up with the idea, that the concept that that's why Trika's commenting. I love Trika. So okay, that the way to overturn that, they needed to start with Plessy versus Ferguson, with the 1896 decision that claimed separate but equal. But that's what they needed to do. So, and then Houston trained a generation of lawyers at Howard University, and he wanted people that would get out and overturn segregation, to work to do that. And he wanted people to go to the South. And so, I don't know. I mean, obviously the North was also extremely racist. So, again, it was asking people, he was asking people to go south and be treated even worse. And so, it's just astounding to me that the sacrifices that people made. So so you learn about Marshall, you learn about William Hamilton Houston, and so that's how I became interested in Thurgood Marshall. And so does that answer the question? Because if you I just was reading a biography about Dorothy Boulding Farabee, who was an African-American doctor who led a group, who led medical tours in Mississippi with women from the NCNW, the National Council of Negro Women, and from her sorority. The AKA, the African American sorority. So these were some elegant, high-powered ladies, and they got in, they drove their cars down there, and there's a picture of them like in their pearls, like pushing the car out of the mud. And I learned about her through a book I read about one of her colleagues. so once you start, if you read somebody and try and figure out like, okay, who were their associates, you know, there you go. Because partially because I had such a shitty education, I really tried. I try to focus what I'm doing somewhat so that I can come to have like a decent knowledge about something. So that is how I started learning about African American history, and I feel that, you know, that it is a way that I can try to hopefully, you know, with running these programs and trying to start conversations, that I can try to contribute to and try and make things a little better.
Good answer. Very good answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that's Marshall. And you know, I like complicated people. I think Trika does too. Yeah. Marshall was complicated, but Rustin was complicated. And Marshall, and so, I mean, Marshall did not have any use for Malcolm X. He thought Malcolm X, I try not to, Trika. Thank you. Yeah, he thought Martin Luther King was a lightweight until King won the Nobel Prize. And he, people know him through when they know. I mean, when people do know about Thurgood Marshall, they know him as the first African-American Supreme Court justice. And so in a way, I know, man, we will be long gone, if ever, before being the first is, I don't know, seen as an accomplishment in and of itself. I mean, he was a brilliant lawyer. He argued 33 cases in front of the Supreme Court and won 31 of them. And I learned that with his clerks, he chose clerks that were going to be professors. He wanted his influence to carry over through education. And so, I mean, he believed that there was going to be a legal solution, and he narrowed stuff down. He wasn't totally on board necessarily with the 1964 Civil Rights Act because of equal accommodations. He didn't necessarily think that business people had an obligation. He didn't necessarily think it should be the law that you have to allow people into your business. So, you know, like, is it wrong and racist to exclude people? Yes. Is it illegal? He wasn't so sure about that. But the tide was turning. I mean, he kind of needed to get behind it because that is how things were going politically. So, and I'm fascinated by how things develop, that they built the case to Brown v. Board of Education. I can't even, I mean, I was listening to and, you know, he thought Eisenhower, like basically, I mean, after Brown v. Board of Education was passed. So, okay, to back up a little bit, what they were trying to prove was separate but equal is not equal. But Polly Murray, another person who was African-American, now she is somebody who I think being gay like did contribute to her lack of recognition. But another reason is that she was a poet, she was a lawyer, and she was a priest. She did so many different things that, you know, I mean, if somebody keeps doing the same thing their whole life, eventually they do make more of an impact. And that is one of the things with Bayard Rustin too. In the last 10 years of his life, he did a lot of international travel, which was completely different than civil rights in the US. If he could have stuck around and been more of an elder statesman, he could have done all sorts of stuff. And so people that do a lot of different things aren't necessarily as remembered. But it was Polly Murray who really helped develop the idea that no matter what, segregation is damaging. With the schools in Brown v. Board of Education, they needed to find, like in most situations, the schools for Black kids were, you know, in terrible condition, didn't have books and all that. But they needed to find schools that were well maintained, that did have books, in order to show that segregation is unconstitutional, that it is inherently, that to segregate is inherently unjust and unlawful. And it took them all these years to take down this claim that, I mean, people would do all sorts of stuff. The state of Mississippi would send people they would pay for Black students to go to college and graduate school out of state if there was not a school, if there wasn't a Black school in their state that taught what those students wanted to learn. Like, they were willing to spend that much money on one student in order to maintain segregation. And so some of the students that did legal cases, that they had a rough decision because they could have taken a deal just to get the fuck out of the South, man. I mean, some of them could have gone to Howard University. They could have gone to like really excellent African-American schools and not lived in the South. And some of them, including like Lloyd Gaines, like stuck around and Autherine Lucy to try and make these court cases that there was not equal accommodations. Lloyd Gaines disappeared, and it seems, you know, pretty obvious to anybody that somebody killed him. And so, I mean, shit. I mean, it, like, I don't know, man. If I was living in some, you know, like, okay, they were like doing these lawsuits in order to get into racist programs where they were going to be treated like shit. And risk their lives, risk abuse and death to them and their families. And these individuals stuck around and did it for, and that's just remarkable. I mean, when I learned that those southern states would pay tuition for Black students just to go to much better schools out of state, that just amazed me. But they would yank the money from Black schools within their states that were already underfunded. So I don't know. I mean, to bring it back to Afghanistan, oppressors make things, oppressors, the segregationists would say like, oh, everybody's just more comfortable this way. And they had this logic that, like, they would say when they were trying to make laws for equal accommodations, equal employment, they'd say to like Black business people, well, this could mean that you'd be forced to hire a white person. Like, we're not passing these laws is to protect you. It's just so strange how they could twist it around like that. And the thing, okay, here's the thing that I always wonder about, like, did they really believe it? Because I mean, if I believe something, I'm going to say it, how come these segregationists, did they fully believe in it? Because how come more of them wouldn't come right out and say like, okay, I believe this? I mean, why did they like, and still, I mean, that's why do racists deny they're racist? Like, if you think you're right, if you really think you're right, why won't you stand behind it?
I think it's subconscious. They know it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's like one of them things, something's wrong, but I think sometimes people just don't want to admit it. And so they, you kind of just try to play it off to yourself that it's right, or what you're saying is right.
Yeah.
And some people grew up like that. So some of them may really think it's right or that it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so when I was listening to this interview with Thurgood Marshall, they were asking him, I was thinking about it because Marshall had no use for Eisenhower, because basically, Eisenhower would not issue a directive to get, they passed this Brown v. Board of Education, but then it just sat there because the southern states were just doing all they could not to implement it. And people would be saying, it's too quick. And so Marshall was being asked that by like some real famous, like, don't you think people should have more time? That's always what people say. And that is said about, it's said now with it's said about Black Lives Matter. It's said about Me Too. Like, okay, this is just all happening so fast. Can't we have like, no, it isn't. Like, no, you shouldn't have more time. It's been, it's been way too much time. So yeah, so he was asked, he was asked about that, and he was asked whether he'd have a conversation with, the segregationists, all that. He's like, that's what he said. I mean, that's what he did all the time. And that was one of the things about Marshall is one of the reasons I like the film Marshall Now Is the Time with Chadwick Boseman so much, is that it shows how charming he was. And the rumors were, Marshall would go drink with the segregationists and that's what, lawyers need to talk with people. So, and the other thing when he was down there, when he was down defending people, he would have to stay in different homes like every night. He was trying to combat lynching, and he faced being lynched constantly. And, he was Thurgood Marshall. He was lawyer Marshall, that lived in New York City, and he'd go down to the South and contend with people like calling him boy. In order to build his case. It was a long process. It was hundreds of cases in order to get to where he wanted to get to what he wanted. So yeah, he said one of the things he said at the end of his life was that if he'd known he was going to live into his 80s, he wouldn't have quit smoking. Maybe that's, that was, yeah, hard drinker, hard smoker. People were tough back then. It fascinates me how long travel took back then. And it's just interesting. When you look at, now there's people that travel all the time, but people back in the olden days when everything was trains and buses, you were seriously sacrificing your family and your private life if you were going to take on a job like that. And I was reading about it, his salary as the chief counsel of the NAACP was $2,400 a year. That's what there's lawyers today. There's lawyers that can make that in a day now.
Yeah, but you know what? That was a lot probably at the time.
It wasn't. No.
It still wasn't?
No, it wasn't a lot back then. No. He could have gone into private. Well, he could have gone elsewhere and made more money. Yeah.
What year was this?
That would have been about 1938.
See, he could have got a hamburger for about 5 cents. He was all right.
He was all right. But William Hamilton Houston was making $4,000 a year. His senior, his supervisor. So yeah, that just. So yeah, he was okay, but he was not making much money. And then, he never did because.
So what do you think was good money back then? What was a good amount of money to make a year back then?
No idea. But
So you really don't think with 2,400 for a year, you don't think he made a lot of money?
I know he didn't make a lot of money because I've read about, because you know, he and his wife like had like, you know, I think they had something, it was something like the equivalent of DoorDash or something. I mean, I know it wasn't a lot of money because I've read about his life at the time. I mean, you know, they had a little place in Harlem. I mean, you know, they didn't live, I mean, you know, well, especially, well, you know, it's not, since he was a workaholic, it's not like they would have gone on vacation or anything, but no, I mean, it was, you know, I mean, people don't do jobs like that for the money. um, okay, so I was listening to a podcast about Josephine Baker, the singer and dancer. And I think she's kind of famous. We remember her for wearing like a skirt made out of bananas. She was born in the early 20th century and was pretty much out on the street from like, you know, time she was like 8, like needing to sing and make money. And then she went to Paris and like, you know, like many, like, you know, James Baldwin, Richard Wright, like a lot of African-American creatives would go to Paris because they were treated better there than they did in the US. So she made movies and she spied for the French government. She was awarded the Legion of Honor for spying for the French resistance during World War II. She really loved France, it was her adopted country. So because she was a performer, she was searched less than other people, so she could carry messages and all of that. But what I thought was kind of interesting was, okay, when she was about 50, she was like an early Angelina Jolie or Mia Farrow. She decided that she was going to demonstrate, and she was also a civil rights advocate, that she was going to demonstrate like racial harmony by adopting kids from all over the world of different backgrounds. She adopted 12 kids, 10 boys and 2 girls. So to me, I mean, there was less understanding back then about the psychology somewhat, but I mean, she was rich. So a lot of places she adopted from, you know, she could like just buy a kid from somebody. It wasn't regulated. She wanted kids from different nationalities. She wanted to adopt an Israeli kid, but Israelis were so into, they wanted Jews to come to Israel, so they didn't want to. So she adopted a French kid, and and gave her a Jewish name. So she bought a chateau and for her 12 kids, and she'd have them kind of perform for people. And so, you know, she'd either dress them all alike, or they'd be wearing sort of costumes from whatever their background was. So I mean, there's people that do that. And well, shit, Joan Crawford adopted her kids when her career was flagging and she was abusive. I don't know anything about Angelina Jolie, but Mia Farrow has like 14 adopted kids from all over the world. And she claimed, her kids say that she was abusive. She was abusive to the adopted kids, not her biological kids. So yeah, so I was looking at pictures of her and her kids, and they do not look happy in the pictures. at all. I mean, some of them look pretty fucking miserable. But I was listening, then what was wild, I was listening to an interview with one of them who, Josephine Baker was bisexual, which was known, but then when her 14-year-old, yeah. I mean, I'm sure she did love, I mean, it's complicated. I mean, people aren't bad or it's complicated. I mean, you know, I'm sure she did love them. I mean, but there's problems, put it that way. I mean, and there was less understanding than about the psychology of adopting children. And so, yeah, I will look for that movie. But she kicked the 14-year-old out of the house because he was gay, which was strange to him since his mother was, I'm sure he didn't know at the time that his mother was bisexual. But I mean, for example, like, you just never know. I mean, everything can just change when people have kids. Like Cher's child is transgender, you know, is a female to male transgender man, trans man. And when they came out as trans, Cher was really upset. And I was like, Cher's a gay icon and has always been, I mean, people can be in show business and have, you know, a lot of different people around them and all that, but it can still just be very different when you have your own kids. So that was a real interesting podcast. It's a 2-part podcast. You know, so yeah, these kids traveled all over the world. And when Josephine Baker ran out of money, they went to live in Monaco with her friend, Princess Grace. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. So, okay. We're starting to wind down. And so, okay, this Thursday, 7 p.m. at Elegant Events Enterprise, 616 Marin, the documentary, Mr. Civil Rights, and about Thurgood Marshall, and then the biopic, Marshall, with Chadwick Boseman, with DJ Rose, spinning oldies. It is going to be a lot of fun. So if you're in Vallejo, please come first. And yeah, so we have stuff going on this week. You got Duck Soup tomorrow night?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. And then Happy Hour Friday.
Yes.
Okay. Then we're back next week. Next Thursday is Trika Know Better, Do Better.
No. Trika will not be doing another Know Better, Do Better until I think the 2nd of September.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, she's out of town, so.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Trika, if you're around next week, I'll shoot you an invite so in case you want to like come on and like fill your fans in on anything. So cool.
So while I was thinking about this, I was gonna bring this up, but I was gonna wait till the end. I was thinking of trying to add something to your show, like maybe history trivia.
Sure, that'd be fun.
And so I'll talk to you more about how we can do it, and maybe because I was thinking of getting some Duck Soup shirts, some Thug Nasty shirts, and get a couple of shirts made for people, and we can kind of, whoever wins the trivia, maybe like 20 or 30 questions, and whoever wins can win a shirt, and we'll mail it to them or something. But I'll discuss it more with you. We'll figure it out.
Man, we are just expanding all the time. So, okay, so we have a lot going on, and Ozcat, thank you so much for
right on Ozcat Radio, the radio of Vallejo,
Radio
89.5.
Sure is. Okay, Tim, thank you so much to everybody that was listening, to Trika and everybody. So, okay, have a good night.
All right now.